Hi guys, we are working with multiplication and this lesson is a little bit fun, a little bit different, a little bit easy. You're getting so good at multiplying. So today we're going to be working with multiples of 10 and multiples of 100. And when I say multiples, that's just like counting by tens or counting by 100. So multiples of 10 would be 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, etc., right? And multiples of 100 would be 200, 300, 400. So that's what we're going to be multiplying by a one-digit number. And there's a great pattern to show you. Okay, so let's get started. So this is a fact that you already know. 6 times 10 is 60, right? But let's look at this another way so that you can use this pattern on something that you don't know already, okay? So we're doing 6 times 10, and this means 6 times 1, 10, because we've got the 1 in the tens place, right? And 0 ones. So think of it like this. 6 times 1, 10 equals 6 tens. 6 goes in the 10 spot and a 0 placeholder in the ones, okay? So here's what we're doing. We're just looking at this basic math fact. We're looking at 6 times 1 and we're putting it in the 10 spot because this means 110, okay? And then we add a 0 because we want this to be the tens. Okay, so let's look at another one. We know that 8 times 10 equals 80, but this is what we're really doing. We're doing 8 times 110. Okay, so 8 times 1 is 8, and this is 110, so it's 8 times 110 is 8 tens. The 8 goes in the tens place, and the 0 goes here. Okay, so we're really just looking at this basic math fact, putting it in the tens place, and then putting a 0 in the ones place. Okay, I know those were easy. Let's take a look at another one. So 2 times 30, you could probably figure that out in your head, but let's look at this pattern, okay? So we have our basic math fact of 2 times 3 tens, right? And we know 2 times 3, that's so easy. 2 times 3 equals 6. And what we're talking about is 30 is 3 tens. So we want to make sure the 6 is in the tens spot, and we put a 0 as a placeholder for our ones so that we know this is 6 tens. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, so we have 3 times 7 tens. 3 times 7 tens. Okay, so let's look at the basic math fact. We know that 3 times 7 equals 21, right? Okay, so now think about that. 21 tens. 21 tens, I can't squeeze 21 in my 10 spot. So what do? That's right, I'm going to put 2. I'm going to change 20 of those tens in for 200s, right? And then I'm going to have 1 10 left over. And here's my basic math fact. 3 times 7 equals 21. 2 in my 100 spot, 1 in my 10 spot, and a 0 in the ones place. Okay, so 3 times 7, this means 3 times 7 tens equals 21 tens. I have to move 20 of those tens and make them into 200s, and so here's my answer. But here's the fun way of doing this. We can just do the basic math fact, 3 times 7, and then look at how many zeros we put after our basic math fact. Just 1. And I put it here. Look at here. Here's our basic math fact. 2 times 3 equals 6. That's our basic math fact. And then add our 0. However many zeros you have in that multiple, that's how many zeros you're going to put after the basic math fact. So here's what we're doing here. When one factor, should put 1 there. When one factor is a multiple of 10, such as 20, 30, 40, 50, etc., write the product of the basic math facts and put 0 in the ones place. Okay? All right, so now what if we did that same sort of pattern, but we did hundreds instead of tens? Okay? So 3 times 300, and you could probably figure that out, 3 groups of 300, but let's take that shortcut. So let's do our basic math fact. 3 times 3, and remember this means 300s, so we're going to have 3 times 300s equals 900s. So we're going to make sure that's in the hundreds place. And then we have to fill in something for the tens and the ones. But we don't have any tens any ones. We're putting the 0 placeholders. Okay, now look at that. 3 times 3, here's our basic math fact. There are 2 zeros in our multiplication problem, so there are 2 zeros in our answer. Okay, let's try this one. Now think carefully here. Okay, so we have 5 groups of 200. Okay, so let's take our basic math fact. 5 times 200s. 5 times 200s would be 10 hundreds. Now what do I do when I have 10 hundreds? Right, I have to trade it in for 1,000, don't I? Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write the basic math fact. 5 times 2 equals 10. Now I've got to add the zeros that were in my multiplication problem. I've got 2 zeros, so I'm going to add those. And I'm not going to forget my commas. So here we go. 5 times 2 tens equals 10 hundredths, right? And so I have to change that in for a 1,000. And so I write the basic math fact of 10. Okay, that's 10 hundredths. So I have 5 times 2 is 10, and then I add my 2 extra zeros for 1,000. Okay, last one here. 2 times 4 hundredths. So think of your basic math fact. 2 times 4 equals 8 hundredths, right? 2 times 4 hundredths equals 8 hundredths. And then add your zeros that are in your multiplication problem and just add it on the end. It's kind of fun, isn't it? Okay, so same rule applies as the tens. We're just switching to hundreds now. So when one factor is a multiple of 100, so if you got 200 or 300 or 400, write the product of the basic math fact and then put 0 in the tens and in the ones place, okay? So in the tens and the ones, the tens and the ones, tens and the ones. So that's how you multiply a single digit factor by a multiple of 10 or a multiple of 100. Okay, let's try some on page 291. Let's do this together. Okay, so let's look at the top. We've got 3 groups of 2 tens each, right? So we are multiplying 3 times 2 tens equals 6 tens. And this is how we write 6 tens, right? We write it like 60. 3 times 2 tens equals 6. So 3 times 2 is the basic math fact. It's 2 tens, so we're going to put a 0 in the ones place because our basic math fact goes in the tens place. Now we're multiplying by hundreds, okay? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 300. So we do 4 times 300s. Basic math fact is 4 times 3 equals 12 hundredths, right? And isn't this how we would write 12 hundredths? Because we would have to change 10 of the hundreds in for 1,000, right? And then we would leave 2 of those hundreds in the hundreds place. Okay, so look at here. Here's our basic math fact. 4 times 3 equals 12. And then we come back and look how many zeros we have here. We have 2. So we put 1 in the tens place and 1 in the ones place. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole page with you. I'm just going to do some of them with you. Okay, so let's look, let's see, let's find a good one for us to work on. Let's do number 4 and 6. Okay, so number 4 is 7 times 40. And so think, 7 times 4 tens equals 28 tens. And if you had 28 tens, you would be taking 20 of those tens and putting them as 200s, right? But here's our basic math fact. 7 times 4 is 28. Look back in your problem. How many zeros do you have? Just 1. And there's your answer, 280. Okay, let's look at number 6. So here is, we're looking at our basic math fact. 4 times 8, it's 4 times 8 hundredths. Okay, so 4 times 8 is 32. And Then we're going to put a 0 for our 10s and a 0 for our 1s. Okay, so now think about this. We said this is 4 times 800s, and it gave us 32 hundreds. That means we have to take 30 of those hundreds and change it into for 3,000s. So that's where we get 3,200. But we also took 4 times 8, wrote the basic math fact, and put a 0 for the 10s and the 1s. Okay, let's try number 11. Okay, so we have 6 times 50. Okay, now you know how to multiply this, right? You can multiply the 1s and you multiply the 10s. You know how to do that, so you can check yourself. But let's try it. Let's try it doing it with the shortcuts. So let's do our basic math fact. Okay, so we have 5 times 6 is 30. Okay, and write 30. Then look back at your math problem. How many zeros do you have? Yeah, you just have 1. So we're going to add a 1 for our hundreds. Now remember, this is a multiple of 10, so we only have to put a placeholder for the 1s, but remember, our basic math fact was 30. That's why we have that extra 0 in there. Okay, let's try number 14. Okay, so we have 5 times 800. Okay, and you do know how to do this. You can multiply by the 1s, you can multiply by the 10s, multiply by the hundreds, but we're trying it with the shortcut way. Okay, so take your basic math fact, 5 times 8, and 5 times 8 is 40, so go ahead and write 40 with the 0 in it, and now you want to put a 0 for the 10s and the 1s. 2 zeros here, 2 zeros in your answer. And that answer is 4,000. Okay, so let's try number 16. All right, let's take our basic math facts, which is 3 times 6, and 3 times 6 is 18. And then you want to put a 0 for the 10s and the 1s. Because remember, it's 3 times 600, so we have 1800s. That means a 0 goes in the 10s place and a 0 in the 1s place. Okay, why don't we try, well, you're probably good. Let's try number 15 together. Okay, so we have 6 times 400. Basic math fact, 6 times 4 is 24. And put a 0 for your 10s and your 1s. Okay, 6 times 4 is basic math fact, 24. Put a 0 for your 10s and a 0 for your 1s. 24 hundredths is our answer. Okay, so down here, they just want you to practice. So when you've got it horizontally, you can always put it vertically. Okay, so that's just some extra practice there. And you're going to finish the back. And this is the only thing I need the photo of is the back side. So remember, do the basic math facts. Put a 0 for your 1s here. You put a 0 for your 10s and your 100s, or your 10s and your 1s there. And try the shortcut on all of these. Okay? All right, when you get to the bottom, you are going to write the 2 closest hundreds. Yesterday we did the 2 closest 10s. Now we're going to do the 2 closest hundreds. So we've got 396. So if we went to the closest 100, it would be 300. The closest 100 up would be 400. So remember to think of a number line, okay, with hundreds, right? Okay, so if we had a number line that was all just hundreds, because that's what we're working here, okay, and we're looking at 396, we would know 396 would go close up here to the by the 400, but the 200s that it's in between are 300 and 400, okay? Okay, on here, remember when you've got your thousands placed, okay, we're still talking about the hundreds, okay? So it would be 3,100. The next 100 would be 3,200. So they put that sample in there to help you to remember how to do that. Okay, so please finish 292. You don't have to finish 291 unless you just want some extra practice, okay? And please send me a photo back.